Copy this down. The parts of a radical. Anything underneath the radical is called a radicand. Right there in the corner before the radical sign is called the root. Right now the only kind of roots you may have done are square roots. This is also known as an index. On the radicals you've done that are square roots, there's actually no number listed. In order to simplify a radical, you have to break it down into prime factors. In the calculator, you can do a math 4 to prime factor for you. Go to your calculator and do 128 math 4. This one has an index of 3, also known as the root. So this is called a cube root. So I'm going to circle 3 of a kind. I have 1 2 left over. So since I brought out 2 2's, those get multiplied together. Copy down example 2. On your calculator, type in 27 math 4, enter. We're also going to stretch out the variable. Our root is a cube root, so we're going to circle 3 of a kind. On this particular problem, nothing is left over, so we don't have a radical in our answer. Copy down example 3. In your calculator, do 32 math 4, enter. This is a 4th root, so we're going to circle anything we have 4 of a kind. And I usually underline or highlight what got left behind. So on the outside of our radical, we'll have 2x, but what got left behind was the 2x cubed. Copy down example 4. Stretch out the x to the 9th and do a prime factorization for 27. This is a cube root, so we're going to look for 3 of a kind. Everything got circled, there's nothing left behind, so we won't have a radical when we're done with this problem. Copy everything you see down. It's important for you to know how to rewrite your radicals as a rational exponent. Rational exponent means a fraction exponent. You're going to put the power on the top part and the root on the bottom. So on this problem, the way that I remember it is I say superpowers, like Superman, is up in the air, and roots are in the ground, which are down low. In order to rewrite this rational exponent, you need to think of your radicand to go inside parentheses. Now we need to ask ourselves, what's the root for this problem? Well, I look here and I don't see a number. What's understood to be there when I don't see a number? A 2. Now what power is this 2? We don't see anything, so it's an understood 1. Now we rewrite it. The radicand becomes your base, and then superpower roots in the ground, so it's to the 1/2 power. The first thing you want to do is put parentheses around your radicand. Then ask yourself, what's my root of this problem? The root is here. Roots go in the ground, so that's going to be our denominator of the fraction. What's the power? That's an understood 1. So our answer is parentheses 7p to the 1/3. You must have the parentheses on the answer. So ask yourself, what's the root? And now write it 17 as your base, superpower, roots in the ground. That's 5/2. Superpower, what's the power? Roots go in the ground. That's your denominator. This one does simplify. You can use the fraction button on your calculator. It's right above the 7. Copy down superpower, roots in the ground. This one reduces. Keep in mind the base is your radicand. Your superpower is up in the air like Superman. That's the power. And then the 5, that's the root that's in the ground. This is what it would look like. The radicand is going to be the base, superpower, roots in the ground. The power goes up high, the root goes in front of that radical sign. There's a 2 here. This is a root. Be careful. When we rewrite this one, it's understood, but we don't write it in the final answer. So let's put all of this together. We're going to rewrite it, and now we're going to expand it out by doing a prime factorization. Now this one is a special problem that we haven't talked about yet. Earlier when we did square roots of negative numbers, we brought out an I. This one we will not bring out an I. Anytime you have a negative to an odd root, it's okay. This one we're going to circle 5 of a kind, which so happens to be all of them. But we still have to take it to the third power. So we're going to rewrite it, superpowers, roots in the ground. Now we're going to prime factor that 64. For this problem, we circle 3 of a kind. We still have to take care of the squared. Copy down. We're going to rewrite it and then do a little bit at a time. Prime factor 125. Circle 3 of a kind. Make sure you know how to do this by hand and not just typing it in a calculator using a shortcut. For this one, the first thing we need to do is take care of that negative exponent. A negative exponent causes the base to flip. So instead of 81, we will be working with 1 over 81. I've already taken the time to rewrite this one. Superpower is a 3, my root in the ground is my 4. Now you're going to do a prime factorization. The number 1 can prime factor by multiplying times itself as many times as you need to. So on this one, I stretched out my 1 4 times. 1 is always a perfect cube, or a perfect square, a perfect fourth. It's a perfect whatever root you're working with. On this one, I didn't show you the circles, but everything comes out. But now you still have to take care of that 1/3 power. So what's 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3? Let's try another negative. The first thing we need to do is take care of the negative. The negative exponent causes a 16 to flip, so it will be 1 over 16. Now rewrite it. Prime factor it. Again, that 1 is a perfect 4th root. Everything has 4 of a kind, so we're working with 1/2. To find the volume of a cube, you would multiply length times width times height. And a cube has congruent side lengths. Here's what the equation would look like. Well, how would I solve this equation? In order to do that, we really are just taking the cube root of both sides. So what is the cube root of 343? Prime factor it, circle out your groups of 3. Here's the equation that you would use. Now I need to get r cubed by itself. The first thing you would need to do is multiply by the reciprocal of 4/3. The next thing I need to do is get rid of that pi. It's being multiplied to r cubed, so I would undo that by dividing. Here's where it's going to get a little tricky. This one's going to be a little bit harder to do a prime factorization for, so I would completely have to rely on my calculator to take the cube root of both sides. In your calculator, there is a button that has a box before a radical. You have to hit the second button in order to get to it.